Guys, how's it going? It's Al. Draft week is finally here. Everybody is going to do their fantasy football drafts this week. Friends and family, if you've been waiting to do best ball drafts, the big money leagues, next weekend is the big one for all the national leagues that go to Vegas and draft there. So it is officially draft week. We have 10 sleeps until Thursday night football kicks off. If you have to do the math, that means that we're recording this on Monday, August the 29th. This is going to be my 5 must draft players. We have put out videos all summer long here on the Fantasy Football channel discussing ADP changes, who's a value right now, who might be a value later. We're down to it right now. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is the nitty to the gritty, where we are going to tell you now, after all the ADP fluctuations have changed and camp is over and cuts are here and everything else, this is where the values remain. So here are 5 players that I think can help you win your drafts. Let's go.
He's a legend.
Let's lead things off with a rookie running back, Damien Pierce. Look, we know that we're not supposed to draft running backs that are in the dead zone, right? So when you come out of the dead zone right now with an average draft position of 84.4 on underdog fantasy, you see Damien Pierce just sitting there staring at you. But Al, he plays for Houston and they're not a good team. It doesn't matter that he's not on a good team. What matters at the running back position more than anything else is volume. Damien Pierce is a far superior talent to the other running backs that they have. All apologies to Marlon Mack and anybody else on that roster, but like Pierce is just different. He's just built different than the rest of them. Looks more explosive, yards after first contact. He looks really good. And we have a prototype for this before. We have seen this. There's precedent just from 2 years ago for what is the ceiling if you draft a running back on a really bad team. Well, the precedent is James Robinson from 2 years ago. When he was on the Jaguars, when they were the stone worst team in the league, he put up like 1,300 total yards with 50 some catches and 10 touchdowns on the year. That would be the ceiling possibility for a Damien Pierce, was he to stay healthy in this draft. At his current draft choice or current draft price as the RB28, going at around 84, he's still a value in this spot. I would take him over a lot of the dead zone running backs that sit there a round or two earlier. I believe that he has similar to higher touchdown upside based on the way that Houston utilizes their running backs to like a Miles Sanders, who spreads that, the Eagles team just spreads things around at running back. He is solid enough in the passing game. And if Davis Mills can just be capable, they were undefeated in the preseason. It's preseason, but like at least they showed that they had life this year as opposed to being lifeless last year. There's a lot of volume coming Damien Pierce's way. Now, I do expect over the next week for this average draft price to rise a little bit. And then it's going to come down to whether or not you can stomach taking him as high as like 75. If he comes into like the low 60s, 60 through 65 pick, now I think you got to make some decisions because I like the wide receivers in that range a little bit more. But as long as you can nab him from 75 to 85, I am more than fine with drafting Damien Pierce. The next running back on this list is Darryl Henderson Jr. Now, you're going to have to hear me out on this one. Do I think that Darryl Henderson Jr. is taking the job? No, I don't. I do think that they are going to have to do things a little bit differently for the Rams. And Coach McVay has been saying as much throughout the offseason that they're not going to use just one running back, kind of as he did in the past. With Todd Gurley, he leaned on one guy, right? And then when Todd Gurley couldn't play, he leaned on CJ Anderson. And then last year, he leaned a lot on Darryl Henderson Jr. when Cam Akers was out with his Achilles injury. And then when he came back from his Achilles injury, he kind of showed us what his game plan is moving forward. One guy is going to be a 60% guy. The other guy is going to be a 40% guy. The problem is Cam Akers' ADP right now is the running back 19 going at pick 52 and a half. Darryl Henderson Jr. is going at pick 120 and a half as the RB40. There's very little risk. You're drafting him as your running back 4 in a very explosive offense. Cam Akers came back and handled a lot of work, but it's extremely inefficient as he made a miraculous Wolverine-esque recovery from his Achilles tear last year. And some of that inefficiency is probably due to the time off. Some of that is probably due to the fact that it was right around playoff time and he was playing playoff time, and he played a murderer's row of running defenses, DVP, teams that really mute running back success. And maybe that was the case. But also, we saw that Sony Michel was on the field a ton during those games, doing a lot of work. That's kind of the role that I expect out of Darryl Henderson Jr. this year. So I'm not drafting him because I expect him to take the job from Cam Akers. I'm drafting him at 120 as my RB4 or RB3 in a zero running back sort of philosophy, if that's how you're drafting, or running back and chill, to be a depth guy who's going to be on the field, can very possibly have some spike weeks based on how running backs are utilized in that Rams offense, specifically when they get close to the goal line. And we know that running back is the most fragile position that exists in basically all of professional sports or fantasy sports. So he's one play away from being the guy again for a week, 4 weeks, 8 weeks on a very explosive, powerful offense. So I'm drafting the ADP gap specifically here between Cam Akers and Darryl Henderson Jr. We have a promo running for the next 2 weeks. You got 2 weeks left on this one. RotoWire is offering, for all of the members of the Smiz gang, 2 free days of all access to their fantasy football site. You can get daily fantasy advice. You can get sports betting advice. If you play daily fantasy baseball or golf, you can utilize those 2 days, all access to everything that they have. Go to smizzle.tv/RotoWire. There will be a pinned comment down below. If you scroll down to the comments, the one right on top from me is going to have that link in it. I will try to make it as easy as possible. It requires not even a credit card. You get 2 free days of access to the site to kind of give it a test drive. If you have your draft this week, and I know that all of you probably have your friends and family football drafts this week, go print out their all their stuff that they have here. They got draft software. You can customize it and optimize it for your league, auction values, sleepers, ADP reports, everything. So go check out everything that they have over at RotoWire and support the people who support the channel. My next player on this list is going to be Kadarius Toney. His ADP has not risen enough. We were getting him cheaper early in the draft season. Look, I draft since May, so like players do tend to rise or fall as the months go on through summer, as players' roles expand or shrink. Kadarius Toney's role was the same then that it is now. It's going to be a very high volume role in an arrow up offense with a much better scheme. I know that Daniel Jones is not great. Obviously, he's tied to that, but he's going to have a tremendous market share of targets. So far this preseason, Kenny Golladay looks like he's marching in chowder or what. Like, he just does not look like he is very fast, right? He's like molasses in January, right? Isn't that the old school statement from the boomers? It's like, oh, he moves like molasses in January, whatever. He's glacial, right? Where Kadarius Toney, mercurial. Give me the younger, faster, more explosive guy with a coach who knows how to get players and scheme players into positions to get them the ball. Now, Toney is somebody who has, through last year, looked like he can get a little dinged up. His size is not great. However, I love the upside in terms of volume here at his ADP of 83.1, being drafted as the wide receiver 41 overall. I think he's going to have a much expanded role in this offense. 25% of the target market share or more is not out of question with all the injuries that they have sustained right now in New York for the Giants. Like, they're going to have to lean on Saquon Barkley out of the backfield and Kadarius Toney in the passing game. And if they can get him the ball in space, this dude can do some great things with the football in his hands and hopefully create some touchdowns, much more so than he did last year, creating roughly. Christian Kirk is another player who I'm drafting this year at ADP. Now, when you draft Christian Kirk, you're betting on Trevor Lawrence kind of taking a leap a little bit in year 2 and coming into the pedigree in the NFL that he showed before that, being the #1 quarterback prospect coming into the league since Peyton Manning. So I'm personally betting on that. I'm also betting on the way that Christian Kirk was deployed this preseason. I like the way that the Jaguars were utilizing him. One, they paid him an awful lot of money. So like, they want him to be a thing. And I like the fact that they were lining him up in the slot a whole lot. I actually like a lot of the things that they're doing in Jacksonville this year that are pointing to this being an arrow up sort of offense. But if Christian Kirk, who was basically on the field the entire time that Trevor Lawrence was on the field in preseason, spending about 60-70% of the time, I believe, don't fact check me, it's a lot, in the slot, which does lead to a little bit higher volume and easier targets convertible to catches. So he's not just going to be running sprints down the sideline like he had to a lot of the time when DeAndre Hopkins was healthy for Arizona. Now he's going to be the main focal point, and they paid him to be such. He's young enough, he's explosive enough, he does have the downfield ability. I personally am a believer in Trevor Lawrence, and I think that he can take a little bit of a leap this year. I'm not saying he's going to post like a Patrick Mahomes season, like 5,000 yards, 45, 50 touchdowns, But like, ask yourself, do you think it's unrealistic through 17 games that Trevor Lawrence might have 4,000 to 4,200 passing yards with 25 to 32 touchdowns? And if he does that, and Christian Kirk is the 22 to 27% target market share guy, the lion's share of the targets in that offense, that he might have a really good year and catch like 90 to 95 footballs and have 8 to 10 touchdowns in that sort of scenario? Of course, that is not out of the realm of possibility. So at an average draft pick of 78 right now, being drafted as a wide receiver 40, I like Kirk as a way to unlock, specifically in best ball on Underdog Fantasy, more shares of Trevor Lawrence getting his highest volume guy, and then you can draft his other picks behind him if you want. So Christian Kirk, either as a standalone or as a way to get more access to a secondary stack with a QB2 that I like a lot, I'm buying Christian Kirk at his current ADP. And the final player is also the highest player in terms of ADP on this list. Kyle Pitts can be a league winner for you this year. Positional scarcity is a thing, and it's a very big thing. And I, through draft season, have prioritized trying to get one of the top 5 tight ends on my list onto my teams in best ball whenever possible. That list is obviously the top 5 tight ends on the board would be Travis Kelce, Andrews, Pitts, Waller, and George Kittle. When you take a little bit of a closer look at it, Kittle is operating in a system, one, where there are 3 very good players catching footballs, right? Between him and Deebo Samuel from an NFL talent perspective, and Brandon Ayuk. I believe in the talent of those 3 individuals a lot. I also believe that this team with Trey Lance at quarterback is going to rely on defense and running, which means that you're going to see less pass attempts from San Francisco. In theory, I could be totally wrong about this, but I think they're going to throw the ball maybe like the Ravens throw the ball, or like the Philadelphia Eagles threw the ball last season, where you're just not going to have very many paths to like 600 plus pass attempts from San Francisco. 500 to 550 seems a lot more realistic. So like, while I like George Kittle this year, it's a little bit more thin. And now Darren Waller, through preseason, has practiced like a couple of times, just fired his agent, may not play in week 1 because of an injury. He's sliding down draft boards, which now has made a position where that top 5 based on talent and expected target market share separated themselves from 6 through 15, where there's a lot of question marks, to now the top 3 has separated themselves from that last 2. So now the top tier of tight ends, in my opinion, as of right now, which was 5, is now 3. Kyle Pitts is the cheapest of that group. His current ADP has climbed. He's gone from like 33 to 29, but I'm still buying at 29 as a tight end 3 off the board. So there's that indirect value adjustment based on the player scarcity. I'm hoping, this is, please, anybody in Atlanta, if you live in Atlanta, right? I hear from people like, I live in Atlanta, so this is what I think. If you live in Atlanta, the rules of Kevin Bacon say that you are within 6 degrees of somebody who is on that goddamn Atlanta Falcons coaching staff. Please get them to line this unicorn up against more linebackers and safeties instead of putting them on cornerbacks whose job it is to stop people that are really, really fast and quick from getting separation. Yeah, he's got a size advantage over those guys. You want to split him out wide every once in a while schematically, go do it. But so much data has shown that tight ends who line up against linebackers and safeties have a much bigger advantage, have a much bigger fantasy point expectation per route run than they do running routes against cornerbacks. So hopefully they run Kyle Pitts either in line or in an H-back situation where he is going to have to be guarded by a strong safety or a linebacker. I don't think there is any way that he sees less targets than he saw last year. We could balloon up to like 140 this season in terms of targets. We could see a higher catch rate if they put him up against linebackers and safeties, which they do project to do. And he takes a normal progression as a player in year 2, where tight ends usually take until year 3 or 4. He is that good. This 1 touchdown that he saw last year, that is not sustainable with the amount of volume that he gets at the tight end position. The amount of yards that he gets at the tight end position translates to him probably being a 7, 8, or 10 touchdown guy here in year 2. I am still buying in this range, and I'm going to take a big leap over my opponents who are taking a wide receiver there by taking a tight end who can separate while they try and figure out some guy in round 10 that they're going to get enough from, and they're certainly not in comparison to any of those top 3. So thank you guys for watching. Look out for another video there.
He's a legend.